Reminds me of Eminem, Tom. Snap back to reality. Oh, there goes gravity. Oh, there goes gravity. We are here. We are here. Welcome back to the Coach's Huddle. It's your boy, the coach, where the field meets family. And I am here with my right hand man with the plan all day, Tom Jensen. What's going on, Tom?
Been a while, Coach. Good to see you, man.
It has been a while. I got to get my act together. All right. We've been working, I've been doged. Okay, so it's going crazy over here in the nation's capital. So we're trying our best to roll with the punches, right? But at the end of the day, we're here, we're faithful, we're feeling good. I've had enough time to step away for a little bit, maybe about 2 to 3 weeks. But one thing that has definitely helped me is I've been able to cleanse my palate, kind of take a break, step away from the Niners, be able to look at what's going on with the team. And before we left, Tom, you and I had very good conversations on what it's going to take for us to not only get over the hump, but move forward to be a successful team. All right. Now, in that time, we've seen a couple of things happen. All right. Free agency just hit. We already saw Deebo Samuel get traded away to the Commanders after a trade that he initiated by his own account. Javarius Ward is with the Colts. We lost Joshua Dobbs to the Patriots. Aaron Banks signed with the Packers for $27 million guaranteed, 19.2 a year. My God. Okay.
They're changing their name to the Green Bay Marks.
Lord Jesus. Like, what are they doing? I was shocked, Tom. I mean, let's take a moment in time.
That was nuts.
What did that do for you, man?
I did a double take. I said, did I read that right? Is it that much? For who? I couldn't believe it.
I automatically hit him with the Ricky Waters. For what? For who? What are we talking about? But I digress. Let's get back into it. We lost Jalen Moore in another surprising move. Jalen Moore to the Kansas City Chiefs, 2 years, $15 million, $21.2 million. 2 years, $21.2 million, $15 million a year. That's starter money.
And he will. Yeah, they've got a needed left tackle. He goes right there.
I can't believe that they're going to try to take our backup swing tackle and start him. That just goes to show you what you could do with a good quarterback or a quarterback that you could believe in. Not to say that's not Brock Purdy. Talanoa Hufanga, $20 million, 15 per to the Denver Broncos. That one stung a little bit. This is when it started to sting a little bit. Okay? Elijah Mitchell, no guaranteed money to the Chiefs. I get it.
Okay.
I get it. Dre Greenlaw, lost Dre Greenlaw to the Denver Broncos as well. And I believe that's the slate, is it not?
Yeah.
Yeah. So the guys that we kept, let's go ahead and get into it. Ben Barch, Trey Tomlinson was an acquisition from the Rams. Braden Willis, Sam Aquanu, Jalen Graham, Alex Barrett, Jake Tunges. Jordan Mason had a second-round tender put on him. Evan Anderson, Austin Pleasance, and Mason Pline. Let me just ask you this. It's murderer's row. I'll say it for you.
That's what I was about to say.
All right, it's murderer's row. They're really getting us in there, but the Niners were all but non-existent on the first day of free agency. And really, what's this kid's name? Farrell, the tight end from Jacksonville.
Luke Farrell.
I I don't understand that move. You could have went into the draft. This is a very deep tight end draft. You know,
I've got a long answer for you on all that. You just tell me when you want me to give it.
I think we're going to get into we already have this free agency approach. Is this the new normal? So
Yeah.
let's just stick with the comments. I mean, let's just stick with the context of the topic, right? Because I feel like because it's been so long since we've gotten together, we're really chomping at the bit to just talk. So let's let me rein it in and format the show. All right. So let's go with my bad. With key departures and long-term planning in play, is San Francisco subtly signaling a 2-year roster overhaul? How does this shift impact the upcoming draft and next season strategy? So, are they cleaning house for a rebuild, or are they moving pieces to get rid of Kyle? Is this a 2-year rebuild?
Yes.
Okay.
I think it is. The issue for them is, first, you have to punish Kyle. I think that's what the Orcs are doing here. He wanted them to spend $334 million in cash last year on the roster.
Mm-hmm.
And then he goes 6-11, and they say, okay, consequences. And so they pulled the chain and said, all right, there goes your money. We're not doing that any longer.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's a positive for the team, is that you need to rein in Kyle Shanahan on bringing it back. You can't keep doing that. It costs too much money to have a third bag for some of these players. It's just prohibitively expensive.
Mm-hmm.
And Kyle didn't care because he's in pursuit of the Super Bowl. So they finally said, okay, enough of that. And I think that what we're now going to see is they're going to say, until we see a contender, we're not going to spend, which means it's not just this year, it's next year. Because this year, the best they can do in likelihood is a wild card. And based on a wild card team, are they then going to invest next year? Probably not. So I think we are looking at a 2-year rebuild.
Yeah. There's so much. It's hard to keep the topics together, but I'm going to try. But I don't think this is a 2-year rebuild. I don't think you can rebuild a team in 2 years. I think that the questions that they have about Brock Purdy are not going to be answered in 2 years. I think that Trent Williams finding the left tackle, is going to be, Trent Williams isn't going to be here in 2 years, in my opinion. Christian McCaffrey's not going to be here in 2 years. George Kittle may not be here in 2 years. In my opinion, I think, I believe that the Niners they're kind of building scaffolding around the team in order to put up a completely new team. I think that the scaffolding that they're putting around the team has nothing to do with kind of repurposing what Kyle does, because in order for us to rebuild, I think we would need a new approach. And you can't.
They do.
Yeah.
No. Just to respond to what you're saying, I think all that is true. I think it's a 2-year rebuild for Kyle and John, but I think that the organization is probably going to move on from them in year 3. What I'm looking for is, when does Purdy have his out? Do they give him a 5-year deal with a 3-year out? Do they give him a 3-year deal? Whenever Purdy is gone, Kyle is gone, because you need to have the ability to pivot for a new GM and a new coach to go on to a new quarterback. So I think that's what's happening. So I think this is a 2-year rebuild for this regime. Doesn't mean that it's a 2-year rebuild for this organization. I think that they're looking at a 3-year window of trying to do the best you can with what they currently have in place at head coach and GM. And then 3 years from now, once the extensions are over, after the 2027 season, new head coach, new GM, new quarterback.
Yeah, I believe so too. Just from a macro standpoint, Leeds is here. The York family, or the ownership group, they have a lot of attention going into making sure that Premier League, that inaugural Premier League designation for Leeds actually sticks. There is no salary cap in soccer, so they've actually got to pay. They got to pay to play in order to get the team in there to fill the team that they feel as though is successful with leads. And I believe that when you have a salary cap team like the 49ers, where if you look at outside of the cap, what they've spent in real dollars, how can you rebuild? I think that I believe that they've set a lot of precedents with how they've paid players, when they've paid players, how they have the behavior of certain players upon getting their money. We always sign guys very late. There seems to never be a deal that seems to be both sides come out amicably on time. But you do have some of them. I want to point out the Diamador Lenore deal was very, very smooth. It was kind of like clockwork, honestly. But for the most part, they sign their big guys when they want to get paid, and then they tell them no, and then they eventually bend the knee. And then when you hear stories about Kyle Shanahan running up flights of stairs to make sure that, i.e., Brandon Ayuk doesn't get moved, or you get an 11th hour call by Trent Williams in the middle of the night of like, hey, I'm moving on. And Kyle has to come in to kind of seal that deal. There's two sides to that narrative, and we've all been living on the good side of that narrative for a while, right? Where it's kind of a nice story to tell. They're war stories, right? Let me tell you how we got Trent. Let me tell you how close it was that we lost Brandon. And in a sense, it's a little bit of grandstanding. They've been on a victory lap, kind of. It's almost kind of like when you do have success, you feel a little bit more inclined to let people know just how close it was to not happening. And I feel like the Niners do that a lot. Once they sign a guy, they're always inclined to let you know, like, if you think that's crazy, well, let me tell you all of the stuff that we were doing in the back end, just so you don't think we were sitting on our hands. But the truth is that, look, that's not functional. That's not the way an organization should be ran, right? I don't want to hear any more of those stories. And I think that in a way, being able to tell a story that's kind of like near miss, you got in by the skin of your teeth, that's awesome, but that doesn't necessarily bode well for process. And I just think that if they are on a 2-year rebuild, like you said, they're on a 2-year rebuild with this current regime. Right. As far as the organization is concerned, they're looking for them to progress forward and actually show proof of concept, because if they don't, they'll be ready to strike and move forward. That takes us into our next topic, actually. So what I wanted to get into with our next topic is this free agency approach the new normal, right? One thing that we've seen with the free agency approach is that the 49ers have taken a conservative approach this year to free agency. This year, is this a one-time adjustment due to the cap concerns that we've been seeing? Like, we got to be honest. It's not, we don't have the money. So for us to, 0 + 0 = 0. You can't get you can't get water from a rock. You know what I'm saying? Like, if it ain't there, it ain't there. But is this a new philosophy under this regime, or is this the new normal organizationally? Because there's a difference.
Yeah, there is. It's important. I think it's new for this regime because they're finally reining Kyle in and saying, we're not going to do everything you want any longer. It's going to have to be tied to success. And if there's failure, there's consequences. And I think that's what's going on, is they're saying that we don't trust you anymore, Kyle. So we want to see proof that this is a legitimate contender, then we'll spend. If we don't see that, you're going to have limits. I think that this year is going to continue until they become a contender again. And the time might run out where it's just the clock runs out on Kyle and John. They hit their 3 years. They get to the end of their extensions after the 2027 season. And that's when the Yorks pull the plug and say, okay, you've had your time. We didn't win a ring. We move on. That, to me, that's what's going on, is that until the Yorks see proof of a contender, this is the new normal.
Yeah. No, Tom. I think that this is the new normal from an organization standpoint. Everything about this regime has been a little bit. It's been the opposite of what we've done in the prior years. We're not really that big of free agency guys. Like our organization is about building through the draft. That is what we have done. Our best players that we have acquired have come through the draft. I mean, obviously, we have our famous guys that we've drafted in years past to get us over the hump, that we've gotten off the top of free agency. But that's when we're like one player away, right? That's when
Yeah.
we have good
Or
contention.
they think they're one player.
Or they believe. Thank you for correcting me. Or they believe that they're one player away. I think that this is not just them taking back the reins, but I believe that this regime was more of an experiment on, all right,
Okay.
let's do it their way. Let's do it their way. Because if you look at what we've done, they've had to strip down some of their process in order for Kyle to thrive, right? Parag has kind of been sitting around like a bump on the log for like the past 6 years. If you look at Kyle is the one that's coming in, if Kyle's the one that's coming in dictating how these guys are getting paid in the 11th hour, players are going in with Parag about negotiations, but they know they got, if you think Kyle has in a way been kind of like a ceremonious bargaining chip in the player's back pocket when they go to Parag to negotiate for deals. You know, we're going back and forth about our deals. And I can understand if you being Parag, Tom, in this instance, yeah, we could talk all day about what you think I'm worth and what you believe my numbers say. But there's a whole different tier of what you believe I'm worth and what my head coach believes I'm worth. And I'm going to have that up in my back pocket whenever I feel like the conversation isn't going the way that I need to. You know, you've seen a lot of guys pull that Kyle Trump card, right?
And with success late.
Yeah. And I believe that this is a new approach. I think that they're going to start going through the draft more deliberately now. And it's a good thing. I believe that that's how we found this team. This core was found through the draft. Okay. Now, did Kyle and John shake things up a little bit with our previous SOP before they got here with going to go get a Christian McCaffrey, right? Doubling down to go get, let's say, hey, let's go get Richard Sherman. We need a guy that can kind of pace us through with all of these young guys. We can go get a guy on the cheap that can kind of give these guys the blueprint, if you will. I believe that that's something new that Kyle brought into the organization that we hadn't seen in years past. Late, like mid-season free agent pickups that are a jolt and are a shot in the arm that helped the season through, right? 2019, we picked up Emmanuel Sanders. That changed everything for us from a receiving standpoint. Not only did it give us the production that we needed, but it added a deep threat that we didn't have at the time. Gave great mentorship to Debo at the time, and it was a great addition to the locker room. I think that those are good things that Kyle and John brought to us, right?
Yeah.
But
it opened that option up that they hadn't considered before. And
exactly. And it worked, right. However, how they got here was our process, the draft.
Correct.
How Kyle and John were able to even show us new wrinkles to the process is because they followed our process first. They went to the draft. Go ahead, Tom. Sorry.
That was the foundation of the team, is that these are the scouts that are leftovers from the Balky era who are actually very good. And you look at the Niner picks and you say, early it's a disaster, late it's all their successes. And that follows with Kyle making the early picks and the scouts making the late ones. And what we're now going to see is, will that change with this draft? Now that Kyle is set back by the Yorks to a degree of, you've overstepped and now we're going to correct that. Will they correct that in the draft process itself? That's what I want to see.
I think they will, because the draft has to marry up with what you're doing fiscally. I think that them kind of sitting back on free agency and understanding that some of the best teams are not the most active in free agency. I hate to put it to you this way, but the worst teams in the league have to be the most active, right? That's why
Yeah.
the Commanders. That's that's why the Commanders are such an anomaly, right? They're very, very active in free agency, but they actually went to an NFC championship game. That's not normal. Usually,
At
your
all.
best teams, they pick off the top, maybe of free agency if they need it. But the majority of what they've done is the players that they've accrued and they've grown on their own, right? The guys that they have
Sure.
equity in. And we've gotten farther and farther away from that line of making a team. I do believe that the new normal, we should have called it the old normal. I believe that this is them kind of getting back to basics.
Yeah. And it's saying that this is ultimately what has built the foundation of this team and our success.
Right.
Going way back, going back to Walsh and McVay, is the draft is the true source of our strength, and we need to rely on that, and we need to lock down our process on that. One of the reasons that things have gotten away from them is they've given Kyle too much power, and that's led to all these mistakes. From Trey Lance to overdrafting weapons, underdrafting offensive linemen, and not building a complete team. And then the financial mistakes of doubling down, running it back, and not paying any attention to the financials. So now the franchise is saying, we want to reset to go back to what worked, what won rings.
Yeah.
And that's what they're doing.
Yeah, and I agree with that 100%. I we've been in the spotlight, but how many times can you be in the spotlight and not actually win? What's it mean to have $1 million face with pennies in the bank?
Bingo.
I can't do any more, maid of honors. I want to get married. I'm tired of it. But I do believe that the new normal is the old blueprint. I agree with you. I think it's time for us to get back to this. And honestly, with free agents, one thing that you always have to realize with free agents is that one, you're always going to overpay them. Free agents are always overpaid. Okay, that's one. Two, they're not yours, so you need them to play for you right off the bat. There is not a free agent on the history of there's not a free agent in the history of the game that everybody's been excited about that they're going to bench and wait on to develop, right? Like, you got to be able to play right away. And I believe that if you're going to be able to get into free agency and you're not getting trenches, then it's fool's gold anyway with skill guys. It is. You're either going to overpay for them. You'll find a guy that's a diamond in the rough, but he's going to be a spot guy for you. Not much more than what you could do in the draft, right? A guy that you could actually watch get better in front of you. So there's a couple of misnomers that pointed that signified to me that the Niners were going to do this in the offseason. I am pleased with what they've done so far. They went out and got Saleh. They went out and got their special teams guy. They replenished their DB coach. Kyle went ahead and got the offensive side together. Greasy walked fine, all right? But the biggest issue that I love that they've done is that they have started to trim the fat. It's time for us to get rid of names and start getting new names, right? So I'm ready for it. What say you, Tom?
I want to see this team develop. So you look at it and you say, they have to look at Kyle and say, all right, we're paying you the most money of any coach in North America that hasn't won a ring yet.
14
we're
per.
You $14 million. And so over the last few years, you've asked us to spend on having the best running back in football, the best left tackle, the best tight end, defensive end, two very expensive wide receivers. Why are we paying you all this money when you're asking us to spend on the very best?
Right.
Why aren't you developing these guys? And that's what this year is going to be. It's, okay, we're done spending. It's time for you to coach. Develop these guys. Make your team happen. It's on you.
Yeah, I agree, man. And this is a very good point from Mr. Big Twan 49er. Fans are more attached to homegrown talent, especially when they become a star difference maker. 100%. That's part of the reason why why it's hard to let go of some of these guys here. Debo drafted, BA drafted, right? Buck drafted. All right. These guys, Dre Greenlaw drafted or acquired, right? Here. So, it's time for us to go ahead and get some more guys. Let's get to some super chats real quick. I know we got a couple of them to come in. Gammon Brown, $2. Thank you. When a player gets a tender, are they a tenderoni? Damon. Gammon, man. Yaz Williams, 199. Thank you. Isn't it 49er Enterprises? Yep. Yeah, it is. But if you really want to go a little deeper, 49ers, they go out and they prospect and they strike gold. That's what 49ers do, man. So in true term of the name, they're not going to just own the 49ers. They're going to go out and they're going to go see what they could do. They're billionaires in America. I mean, come on. If you're a billionaire in America, you can damn near take over an election and start a fake agency. It is what it is. You can do what you want. So, hey, let's get into our next topic, Tom. Our next topic right now is something that we've been talking about before, and it has to deal with the draft. All right, so now that we've seen free agency, it's not transpired. It's not over, but I will say that the draft, with what we've seen in free agency thus far, there's a couple of things that I want to talk about now that this has happened because the draft is shaping out. One, Coach Saleh has got to be sweating bullets right now. You know what I'm saying? Like,
yeah, because he's not getting enough help. So it's clear that they're saying we're going to put all the defensive chips on the draft. That's what's going on,
dog? If you're Robert Saleh right now, what are you thinking now that you've signed on? What do you think? Are you like, are you sitting here like, bro, what did you guys have in mind before you signed me here? Do they? All right, this is another question. Did they talk to Coach Saleh about this before he came on? Do you think they let him know like what they're gonna do?
I think they might have hinted, but that's at best. I don't think they spelled it all out for him and said, by the way, we're going to cut you off. Would he have signed knowing this? Probably not.
That's why I'm asking this question. I'm asking this question because if they were honest about rebuilding and basically shifting, gutting the team in a sense, would they have been forthright about that when trying to acquire Coach Saleh? Or we can go the opposite way. Were they upfront about with Coach Saleh? And he said, all right, well, let me go see what I can go do for head coaching candidacy. Let me get out here, get a couple of interviews under my belt. I don't like what I'm hearing. At least you were honest with me. We can move forward. Or is he just as blindsided as we are?
I think he was hit, but at the same time, he didn't have many options. He had his head coaching chances. They didn't materialize. So this was the best chance for him. Defensive coordinator of the Niners, most money for a defensive coordinator in the league. So for him, it's what choice does he have? Even if they told him, he still would have taken it because it was the best thing in front of him.
Yeah. If I'm Coach Saleh, I'm beside myself. I mean,
I'm mad, but I also understand why he's still here and why, in my opinion, they probably didn't tell him the full truth. They might have told him part of it, but not the whole story.
All right. The Niners hold 11 selections in this year's draft, but is the quantity the best approach? Or should they package picks to move up for impact players? Let's break down potential trade-up scenarios or trade-back scenarios if they were to do it. Or just tell me flatly, you think that they should get all 11. I'll tell you this right now. In my opinion, I think we need all 11 rookies. What do you think?
I think that's likely. And they might package some because they've got 2 picks in the third, 2 picks in the fourth, 3 picks in the seventh. So when you've got multiple picks in a round, you tend to package things and move around a little bit. But I think on balance, they're going to end up with at least 10 picks, and they love their picks. That's their history. So I expect that they're going to use them. People can say we need to move up or we need to move down. there's a lot of value in the late first. There's a lot of value in the early second. There are these groups of how the draft breaks down. But my expectation is that they're going to stay put for the most part. That at best, they're going to make small moves later in the draft when they've got multiple picks in one round.
Yeah. I don't think that they need to make any moves unless there's a guy that they really like and love. For me, I'm looking at this year's draft, as you have been so gracious as to put together one of the meanest big boards for us. I'll tell you this right now. I think that there's a pick to be had at every pick along the draft.
Yeah.
This is a very deep defensive line draft. Very deep.
And it need to be for them to get what they need. They're going to need 4 new defensive linemen based on what they've done.
Yeah. I mean, there's at least 20 guys that you could pick up in the first 3 days. Defensive tackle. That's deep. Okay.
It's the deepest defensive tackle draft in over a decade. It's like last year when
last year with O-line.
The amazing O-line. This year it's defensive tackle.
Yes.
Less or so defensive end, but both of them are still deep. The great positions in this draft: defensive tackle, edge, running back, tight end.
Yes. I'll tell you this. If there's one pick that I don't want this year in the draft, I don't want to draft a linebacker.
Ooh. And Robert Saleh is going to say, not a chance.
What are they going to do, though? Jahad Campbell out of Alabama is the only day one guy that I see willing to be drafted that high. I mean, if we don't drafting a linebacker in the second round is malfeasance.
Well,
I'm sorry, that's malpractice, bruh.
No. Well, this draft breaks down in such a way that doesn't make any sense. Campbell is currently mocked to go from 12 to 16. If you're Robert Saleh, you said you were adamant about Greenlaw. They didn't sign anybody in free agency. Is he going to demand Campbell?
Jahad Campbell.
I think that's entirely possible.
You know who else?
Or they make a small move down, but a really small move because Atlanta wants him at 15. So if they were to do that, they could. But there's a lot of people that don't want a linebacker at 11. They've got some other position in mind. But I think that Saleh is going to push. And Campbell is a chess piece. He's a converted defensive end, so he can be a great blitzer. He's also somebody that can be a threat to just be an end on a down. So your simulated pressure packages become a lot better if you've got Jahad Campbell. I think that's something Saleh wants.
Okay, so let me put it like this. The reason why I said I don't want to draft a linebacker this draft is because I believe that when I would want to draft a linebacker, which is maybe in the 4th or 5th round, I just think that it'll be hard for us to get a guy that'll be an impact guy right away. Okay? Right?
Okay.
So you're looking at, let's play ball a little bit.
Okay.
You like Jahad Campbell. I like Jahad Campbell too. However, do you like Jahad Campbell over James Prince Jr.?
I think the character concerns on Prince are so bad that he's going to drop. A lot of people are saying that.
Yeah.
He's probably going to drop to the 20s or the 30s. And the Niners, given their history, I think they're going to pass on both Pierce and Mike Green.
I wouldn't be mad at Mike Green. I'm alum at Marshall, so I've done some homework on Mike Green. He's a little bit of fugazi. I heard that he's not a really good practice player as well. So I don't know about Mike Green. I've kind of fallen off of that hype train. So do you think you get more bang for your buck with Jahad Campbell out of Alabama over James Prince Jr.? We already know. I mean, there was a little bit of a scare with Abdul Carter, basically the apex predator in the draft this year. But I still think he gets picked before us. There's, you know what I'm saying? He's still off the board.
There's no question. He's one of the top 3 players. It's just a question of what order, what team, are there trades, or are there not? But it's Cam Ward, Abdul Carter, and Travis Hunter. Those are the top 3. And then it's the rest of the draft after them. There's no way Carter lasts to 11. So for the Niners, it's okay. Campbell is one option at 11. Who else? Membu is gone by 4.
Membu's gone.
Estimation. Will Campbell, because the Jets just lost their right tackle in free agency, probably goes to them at 7. So there's the 2 linemen I would want. I have no interest in Josh Simmons given his patellar tendon injury, and I have no interest in Banks after seeing the tape for a while.
He's a
not
guard.
doing that. Yeah,
He's a guard.
He lunges. He's not a tackle. And the Niners, when they met with him in Indy, they talked to him about guard and right tackle. They did not talk to him about left. So there's no offensive lineman you're taking 11. Who else?
And I'm not taking no damn guard for the 11th overall pick. I'll tell you that much.
Correct. I agree completely. So, okay, who else? Tyler Warren, but there's a lot of teams interested in
there's too many tight ends in the league, in the draft for a tight end that high.
That too. But he's still going to be gone anyway. Is that the Jets are interested in him at 7 if they don't take Campbell, and New Orleans is interested in him at 9. So Warren's going to be gone anyway. He's going to be off the board. And then Ashton Genty, he fumbles too much for Kyle. He's not going to consider him at all. So,
well, we just put a second-round tender on Jordan Mason, so that's stupid. And we got Isaac Garendo that we just drafted, who showed us promise. I don't think that we're going to get a running back anytime soon. Could it be? I don't think Walter Nolan. I don't think Walter Nolan deserves 11th overall now.
No, me either. It's Nolan came into the combine and said, "I'm going to be Mr. Versatility. I'm going to be a defensive end and a defensive tackle." Wrong
that pissed me off. Me too. I was out on Walter Nolan when he did that.
I heard that and said, "You're done, dude.
We're done. We're done."
Nobody wants that. What we want you to do is to bulk up and to be an industrial strength defensive tackle.
You're barely 290 as it is, and he's talking about wanting to be a damn near a fringe player. Like, nah, bro, no.
There's a guy. Somebody told him that's how you add your value. It doesn't.
It doesn't. Okay, so there's a guy that I like. Nobody's really been bringing him up. He's got the size. It ain't sexy. Kenneth Grant out of Michigan.
Kenneth Grant goes 18 to 24. You trade down for him. You don't take him at 11. Nobody is considering him as an 11th pick value. No one.
Oh, my God.
They can. I
don't want to go receiver.
If that's who they want, they can trade down for Grant.
I don't want to go receiver. You're saying James Prince Jr. I agree with this too. I'm kind of upset that you mentioned that, but it's the truth. James Pierce Jr. James Pierce Jr. is his off the field issues are kind of coming into the surface. Mike Green is too rich at 11. Jahad Campbell at 11 overall. They gotta pull the trigger on best available at 11.
Well, highest impact, and I think Campbell would have that as a chess piece under Saleh, and a linebacker that can also play some edge. That's a weapon. That's somebody that I think Saleh would like.
I'm gonna be honest with you. I gotta be real with you. The next best linebacker, in my opinion, isn't even a second round pick. Right? He's like a midday pick, in my opinion. Yeah. So I mean, that would be Carson Schwitzinger. I'm out of UCLA.
UCLA, right? And he's an early 3rd round pick.
Okay, so you're kind of swinging me on this. The reason why I didn't want to get a linebacker is because later in the draft, it's just you can't explain it on any part of the rounds. But
I have a linebacker for you in the 5th, but we'll get to that.
Let's get to that. But if you're gonna get the best guy, hands down, I think okay, what I mean by that is, let me explain myself. How much better is Cam Ward than Shedeur Sanders? We don't really know. It's a lot more, but it's not like a complete delta where you could just see it, right?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that's true.
How much better is Ashton Genty than a Marion Hampton? Right?
Very, very little, if any.
If any.
To me, the best back is Travion Henderson, but that's
out of Ohio State. That's kind of my guy too. I'm also a Caleb Johnson guy out of Iowa. It's my guy. One cut back.
And they met with him at Indy, formal interview. So they're showing some serious interest in him.
The guy out of Iowa?
Yeah, Caleb Johnson.
Caleb Johnson's a dog. Receiving, I believe that this is the most ambiguous. This has the most ambiguity of the draft is the receiving class, right? I don't even think I like Ted McMillan, but I kind of feel like he's just number one because he's just there. I've watched this film. He really doesn't do it for me. He's a big
No.
guy. Every time that I see him, he, like you said, and he's his play comp is Drake London, but I think that Drake London is immensely more athletic than Ted McMillan.
Well, and he's more complete. The problem with McMillan is that he's a long strider, so he doesn't come in and out of his breaks well. And basically, he's a guy that has to have a long route for him to get to the acceleration. He's got long speed, not short speed or acceleration.
Mm-hmm.
And he's got a limited route tree. So I think that people will be interested in Ted McMillan if they want a deep threat and say that I need this guy vertical.
Mm-hmm.
But we'll see. Omarian's the best back. For the Niners, he's not. For Trevion Henderson, you'd say, what does Kyle want in the back? He wants run pass where you're equally going after the defense and dictating to them. You want a home run threat. You want a pass pro guy. Henderson's the best in the class at pass pro. And Kyle being Kyle, the cherry on top, you never want him to fumble. Henderson never fumbles.
Never.
He has no lost fumbles career at Ohio State. And you tell me Kyle's not going to be jumping out of his skin for Trevion? Sure he is. The problem is that he's in the 20s. How do you get him? It's going to be really hard for them to pull that off unless they trade down.
All right. So now that we're moving forward, we've already moved past. Travis Hunter is a no-go. Luther Burden III, I'm done with receivers in the first round. I honestly,
yeah,
you'd watch me end it all on YouTube if you saw us draft a receiver in the first round. I'm gonna tell you. Slot,
and there's no reason. You can get quality receivers that are almost the same player in terms of just their impact on the field. Fourth,
they're all the same guy.
You don't need to use a first rounder and a wide receiver in this draft. No way.
Tight end, like you said, is loaded. We don't even have to go through it. Tyler Warren's the guy, but you got Colson Loveland, you got Arroyo out of Miami, you got Mason Taylor out of LSU, you got a Harold Fannin out of Bowling Green. You also got Gunnar Helm out of Texas, Terrence Ferguson out of Oregon. I mean, these are all guys that, to be honest with you, Tyler Warren, I believe that he is the number one guy. A lot of it is because of his God-given talent and his God-given ability and talent and his skill set. However, I also believe that some of that is because of usage. They really gave him a lot of swings at bat. He got so many targets that he's not going to see in the NFL.
And carries.
Yes. He carried them. So I'll give you that. Tyler Warren's awesome. What I've seen is that you can put a lot on his plate, but I don't necessarily see a guy that's, a game changer.
Is he that guy? No.
Exactly.
And it doesn't matter. He's probably going at 9.
Mm-hmm.
And if he doesn't go at 9, I would expect that Ben Johnson, looking at what he had with Laporta in Detroit, he would look at Warren.
Mm-hmm.
So the only question for Kyle is, would he want Colston Loveland at 11? I think that's too rich.
No.
He wouldn't do that. So we're going back to this and circling around and saying, all right, is there anybody on offense they would want at 11? No.
Right. So Josh Simmons, no. Mimbu's gone. Right. What would you say about Connerly at 11 out of Oregon?
Oh, again, too rich. He's mocked frequently for 20s, late 20s.
Right.
And there are some that have him mocked to go into the 30s, that he'll go into the second round. The problem with Connerly is he's got the length that you want. He's got the speed that you want, but he doesn't have the anchor that you want. He's light. He's got a guard's body with a tackle's arms. So he has to develop into a tackle in the league. I think he will. I think he'll be great eventually, but he's not going to be great now. And for Kyle, he wants great now because he's only got 3 years.
For sure. Center, guard and center out of the question. Defensive tackle. Mason Graham's going to be gone. Walter Nolan is too rich at 11.
Yep.
Kenneth Grant is too rich at 11. So is Derek Harmon. I love Talik Williams, Ohio State, 6'3", 327. Physical guy. I think that he's kind of like, I think he's the physical embodiment of Dre Greenlaw at D tackle. I mean, he is always on one. I love his pad height. I love how he plays behind the line of scrimmage. He almost is like, to be honest with you, he's a bigger, more polished Walter Nolan.
Yeah, in a
Just with
way.
just not
Well,
as explosive. Walter is
right,
a lot more explosive and violent than Talik Williams, but as far as body is concerned, he's heavier. He has more girth. He plays with better hands, and he's more polished. Like he
right,
actually doesn't get ran out of his gap like Walter Nolan does a lot.
right. Because Tyleek is over 330, and that's why. But you take everything that they want Walter Nolan to be, and 90% of that is Tyleek Williams. So to me, in my mock, Tyleek Williams is their pick at 43.
Okay.
So we go back to circle to 11 again and say, okay, no offensive lineman, no offense, period. Defensive
Edge is
tackle,
out.
Edge is out because Pierce is out. I think that you would take Pierce. But then Michael Williams, no, he just ran a 475.
A 4.7. Did you see that?
Bye, dude. You're going down.
You're gone.
He's done. Jalen Walker, I like the idea of a chess piece, but I would rather have Campbell as my chess piece than Walker. I think that he's still got some seasoning that he needs to add to. He needs to add some weight, and I don't think that he's a now player. I think that even with everything that's being talked up about Walker, he's probably going to Carolina. They're the ones that are hot on him. So Walker's probably off the board anyway. And then you say, okay, who's the next edge after that? Ezraku, and he's late 20s. So no offense, no defensive tackle, no edge. Linebacker is Campbell and no one else. So you've got DB or safety. DB, they're going to look at Will Johnson. They're going to look at Jahdae Barron. Problem with Barron, his arms are under 30, and the Niners don't draft DBs with sub 30 arms.
They draft big DBs.
They don't do that. Now, maybe they change and they say that Jahdae Barron made Jeremiah Smith disappear. And that's true. He's a hell of a player. But I think that if they have a choice between Will Johnson and Jahdae Barron, they would take Johnson because he's the bigger player. And that becomes the pick. Would you have Jihad Campbell or Will Johnson? I think they would take Campbell.
Yeah. If you're gonna do it, now that I've seen it, as far as all of the classes and position groups that we've had, even with the safeties, I think safety is a very deep draft too. Malachi Starks, Nick Emewarmi, Xavier Watts, Kevin Winston Jr., and Andrew Makuba, all five. I mean, they're different. You got different strokes. I mean, Andrew Makuba is the tweener out of all of them. In my opinion, I think I like him the best because he's kind of like the most explosive. But
they met with him. They met with him. He was the only safety they met with in Indy. They didn't meet with him in Worry. They didn't meet with Malachi.
Mm-hmm.
But Eamon Worry had that unbelievable combine, though. I mean, that's a combine for the ages.
I mean, Eamon Worry, that's my only thing that fills me. You know, he gives me. You know what Nick Eamon Worry gives me a little bit. He gives me a little bit of what's that kid out of USC? Taylor Mays. He gives me Taylor Mays vibes.
Oh, in terms of the athlete, yeah.
Yeah, in terms of the athlete.
He's a much better player. I mean, he can play linebacker. He's smart. He calls the defensive sets for them. He's an unbelievable talent, but I don't think the Niners would consider him at 11. The one thing that I fear with Eamon Worry is he's going to go to Seattle, and Mike McDonald is going to say, here's my new Kyle Hamilton. And the Niners are going to have to deal with this guy.
Deal with him.
And he's going to be a load. So we'll see if he goes to Seattle, but that's my one fear with Eamon Worry. Please go anywhere but Seattle. If he goes there, McDonald is going to optimize him the same way.
We're gonna have to face him for the rest of his whole career, and he's not going to go anywhere. So
and he's a beast. So you look at this, and that's the way that I come to where I do on 11 is that Jihad Campbell is the right pick.
Jihad Campbell. I'm gonna go ahead. I mean, he's a Bama guy. You know, I've watched him a lot. He's a dog. I'll give it to you. Yeah. I mean, one thing that I will say that I've seen out of Jihad Campbell moving forward. One thing about him is that he's an up north boy. He's from New Jersey. So I was excited to get him. I always pay attention to our metropolitan area boys when they come through. So once Bama had picked him up, I was already kind of on his bumper, so to speak, to see what he does. One thing I will tell you that he does is that he does have an explosive first step. All right. This is the biggest, how can I say, disparity from first to the rest of the pack in the NFL. So if we're talking about going best available and getting what we would say is hands down the best linebacker in this draft, it would be Jihad Campbell. That's a no-brainer. One thing I'll tell you this: if you want to watch film on him, now that you got all of my Jahad Campbell stuff coming rushing back, because I was really to just write him off, because I thought we don't need linebacker right now. We can find ways to kind of like engineer around it, like we've always done. And I just didn't feel really good about watching the rest of the linebacker class. I know you got a fifth round pick to get to, that we're going to talk about. But let me just give you a couple of the notes that I have on Jahad. That I had with him. And this is just me being able to watch him for multiple years, not only just being a Bama fan, but just being a football fan. He's got good coverage instincts. They're advanced, okay? Also, because he's a converted edge player, one thing about him is that he's very comfortable around the line of scrimmage. He has an explosive first step. If you really want to see that, watch him play against LSU, man. They could not stop him knifing through the A-gaps. That's one thing that they started doing with him, putting him over the A-gaps, making him a blitzer. You cannot stop him. His interception against Georgia, exceptional route recognition and zone drop. That's something that you should also see with him. As far as hitting is concerned, what we lost in Dre Greenlaw, we will get back in Jahad Campbell, okay? He is a physical tackler. He brings a serious pop, all right? He's not that much of a guy that misses tackles either. One thing that I'll say about him is that watching his entire career, once Jahad puts his hands on you, you're going to the ground, okay? That's another big thing. He does not practice in missed tackles. Like we said again, this is also something that I love, Tom, that you brought this up. I don't even want to take this as my own notes, but he's multifaceted. Creates matchup problems. One thing that I will tell you is that he plays Mike and Will. So he could stay on the field with Fred Warner. If Fred comes off, he's played Mike himself. So this is something that we've almost kind of looked at, where we've had these Shires, we've had the Dre Greenlaws. But when you're looking at, Fred is always that guy that we just can't lose. We can't lose Fred.
Right.
I'll tell you this: we get Jahad Campbell. If Fred goes down, we're moving Jahad right over to Mike. Okay.
Yeah.
So this is
and not losing much in translation.
Yes. Another thing that I'll tell about you that I love about him is that his closing speed. He's got very good pursuit and closing speed. One thing I'll tell you right now is that he scoops and scores a lot. I can remember off the top of my head him scooping and scoring against Tennessee. That was a really good game for him. Also, him being bigger. One thing that we notice about Dre that I'm a Kobe fan, right?
Right.
I just, if Kobe was 6'8", just give him 2 more inches.
Oh, I know. Well, he wanted the bigger hands was what Kobe.
Yeah. If Kobe had Mike's hands, or if he was like 6,
over.
It's so.
But anyway, Coach, if I could interrupt.
Oh no.
Gammon is on us. Mac Jones just signed with the Niners, 2-year deal.
Mac Jones just signed with the Niners.
So Kyle has, he couldn't help himself, basically. Mac Jones. Okay.
Mac Jones.
Yeah.
Oh.
I would have preferred Jameis. Thank you very much. Oh, well. Anyway, yeah, so Mac Jones, all right. Does this mean that they can then be more loose in the negotiations with Purdy? Probably not. Yeah. Anybody that thinks Mac Jones can start, I would refer you to his past. I don't think so.
This is going to be very interesting. Mac Jones. Obviously we know what he brings. One thing I will tell you is that Mac Jones is not one for the bullshit. This is another Bama guy. Mac is fiery. I want to see how Mac Jones goes through the offense. One thing I will say is that Mac Jones knows how to process, but Mac thinks he's better than his arm. He will throw picks.
Mac he's a legend in his own mind, and he will make throws that he shouldn't. He's like Purdy in that sense of your judgment needs to improve because you're throwing into traffic when you don't have the arm to do it.
Dude, now if they trade Brock and we've got Mac Jones.
The tank is on.
What are we doing?
Mac Jones, please.
Mac freaking Jones, bro. Oh, okay, my God.
So anyway, it's just if this is what they want to do, it's just. And this is Kyle. This is the guy he always wanted, and the fan base told him no, no, 1,000 million times no. And now, with enough distance between now and then, Kyle can say, "I want Mac Jones now." Kyle gets what
Yeah,
he wants, and so here we are saying Kyle is going to be dialed back now. Mac Jones, Kyle is still front and center. Here we are, Mac Jones, please.
yeah. I'll also tell you guys this. One thing about Jahad Campbell too that's also important to bring up is that this is a guy who kind of went through Alabama's program like a hot knife through butter. He's coming in right now. He's coming in. He's not a senior. I think Mac Jones is it's like a redshirt sophomore.
Yeah,
he's a redshirt sophomore. So you also have to understand that this is a guy that went to one of the best programs in the nation, and they couldn't keep him. He went there, he performed, he went through all of their workouts, he went through all of their programs and their process, and he went right through it. He didn't struggle to get on the field. Nobody started in front of this kid. This is a program that brings in the best players year in and year out. And Jahad Campbell had a cup of coffee at Alabama. So that's something to also realize, too, that this guy that we're bringing, this isn't like a, how can I say, like a Reuben Foster. Reuben spent some time at Alabama. Okay, Reuben had to wait his turn. Also, you got to look at what's my boy who plays safety? Malachi
Starks.
Not Malachi Starks, but Moore.
Malachi
Moore, right?
Coach on the field.
Yeah, coach on the field. Awesome guy that I love to get, but Malachi spent his entire career at Alabama, right? If we get Jahad Campbell, we're getting a guy that even the best of the best in college football realized it's time for you to go to the league. Like you're kind of like they're not even trying to develop him into what they do. They're just trying to use the best of what he has until he goes to the league, right? He's that kind of guy. So,
and it speaks to his work ethic. It speaks to his football IQ.
Mm-hmm.
It speaks to his athletic base, his clay.
Mm-hmm.
He's ready. He's an NFL player, and he was from the get-go.
And he's the youngest linebacker in the draft. He just turned 21 years old.
Right.
That's also realizing that this is a guy whose you got to be able to look at the context of the positions. If you look at the best number one of each position group, it'd be hard to say Jahad Campbell isn't the top of that list. There's really nobody close to him in the linebacker class this year. So, yeah.
He's a first, and Schlesinger is the second best linebacker and the third. So there's a 2-round gap between Campbell and the next best linebacker.
Yeah. Yeah. I believe that if Jahad Campbell got drafted last year, he would have went in the first round.
Me too.
Yeah. So that's how I think. I think they should take all 11. Me and you have practically just hashed out who we believe to be the first round pick.
So let's do that then. Let's say, 11, Jahad Campbell, linebacker.
Okay.
Alabama.
All right.
43 is Tyleik Williams, defensive tackle, Ohio
State.
75 is Femi Oladejo, who they're extremely high on, UCLA, edge, converted linebacker, sets the edge well, good athlete. I think I'm getting Debo from Senior Bowl vibes of the way that they're treating and talking up Oladejo. Sounds like he's their pick at 75.
Love that. Let's go into pick. Sorry about that, Tom. You got anything for pick 100?
No, but I wanted to get to my 5th round linebacker guy.
Let's talk about it.
This goes back to the signing of Luke Farrell, believe it or not. Part of what they did with Farrell is you have to consider that now the draft is so important that the thinking changes. It flips. It used to be they should draft this guy so that they can save the cap room. And that's what you were thinking with Jackson Hawes, who I was going to mock for them in the 5th round.
Right.
But they chose not to because they're saving that 5th round pick. There's a guy they want. They don't want to spend it on a blocking tight end. Okay, so why did they take Farrell? One, to replace Juice, they needed an upgrade blocker. They got it. He's a very good blocker.
Better
He's
than
terrible.
Juice.
He's terrible as receiver, though.
Horrible.
Why else did they do it? To open up the tight end class to them so that they can now draft a receiving tight end and not have to worry about how he is as a blocker. And so that means that they can now look at Harold Fannin, who they met with at Indy in a formal interview, Jake Brenningstool, who they also met with in a formal interview.
Out of Clemson.
Right. They're going to look at the guys who are receiving tight ends now that they've got the blocking tight end. Because this draft only had 3 two-way tight ends. It had Warren, Loveland,
And
and
Arroyo.
Tim. Arroyo is, he's
Seam
okay
threat.
as a blocker, but he's a much better receiver. He's a dynamic receiver. As a blocker, he's okay. So arguably there's 4. But by signing Farrell, that opens up the rest of the tight end class for them to pick. Now they can get a guy that's just a receiver, and that's why they talked to Fannin, in my opinion. And now the last reason is they wanted to save the 5th-round pick. Okay, for who? Another guy that they met with in Indy, formal interview, and it's really rare to do that with a day 3 player. Guy's name is Nick Martin. He's a linebacker from Oklahoma State. He's a great athlete, ran a 4.5 340, quick closing speed, sideline to sideline player, violent, blitz upside, solid tackler, but he's undersized because he's 6'1", 222. That's why he goes to the 5th. I think that's a guy they're targeting because it's so rare to have a formal interview with a guy that's a day 3 pick. To me, that signals they're looking at him in the 5th. Doesn't guarantee they'll pick him, but I think that's one consideration. So why did they sign Farrell? To upgrade a blocker, to draft a receiving tight end, and to pick Nick Martin. Those are the 3 reasons why they did it.
I hope you're right. One thing about it is that the money that they gave him, the number one thing that I was looking at is like, why couldn't we have just kept the kid from Georgia, Charlie Warner? Obviously,
that's what they should have done.
They should have just kept Charlie Warner, but it is what it is. Let's move on to the next topic, Tom. I think we talked about this topic for like 30 minutes, bro. But so
yeah, it was good stuff though. Love
time flies when you're having fun, man. So let's go ahead and reset and get into it. Right now with the next topic, the Niners, will Kyle Shanahan trust his rookies? One thing that I will say is that I don't even know what I forgot. I lost train of thought. With the rookies coming in and with us going under the sustained perceivable rebuild year for the next 2 years, all right, will Kyle Shanahan finally realize that he has to rely on his younger players instead of his veterans? One thing that I just think that is kind of rich is that Kyle always gets this this moniker for, you really got to earn Kyle's trust in order to play inside of his scheme. And if he doesn't trust you, then you don't get on the field, and if you're not ready to play as a rookie, then you're going to get sat down. And, if you're not ready to go by the second year, then we're moving on from you by the third year. Then we'll just start talking about how we need to just replace you. You can't really have that when you're trying to rebuild, especially in a 2-year span and when you're trying to get things done. I think that this year, honestly, remember when Trey was here? And the biggest thing about Trey, and he used to frustrate me, is that Trey didn't make the easy look easy, right?
Yeah, everything was a struggle.
Everything was a struggle, bro. You know what I'm saying? Like, the biggest thing about that is like, all right, Trey, you can get out. You can break the pocket, jump over 3 guys, you know what I'm saying, evade people and the whole 9, but you can't hit a backside slant on time, right? Or you can't throw the comeback route on time, or you miss, you go and you throw a beautiful ball down the sideline to Trent Sherfield, but you miss Debo standing in the flat, or you know what I mean? Like, it's just the simple stuff. And that's what the 49ers and this coaching staff, they sold us on this. And I hated to admit it, but it was the truth. It was the truth.
Yeah, it was. It's also that they want to see it throw at quarterback, and that's not who he was. But
See,
you should have known that
mhm.
this is the quarterback we need for our system and what we run. Does he have those traits? No. So why are we taking him? Because Mike Shanahan said, I love this kid to his son, and Kyle took him? That's why.
Well, let's look at this. I got something for that ass now. Now the tables have turned. You know who had a team that was gutted last year, and they had to show that that in the whole league was thinking that this team was going to be bad. They were going to have to shake out, and there was no way they were going to make the playoffs. That was the Rams last year.
Yeah.
That was Sean McVay last year. Nobody expected the Rams to do anything last year because they had went to the Super Bowl. Team was gutted. Everybody's gone. They're possibly talking about that was a year Aaron Donald retired. They were talking. There was reports of Matt Stafford possibly being done, not wanting to go, and the freaking Rams ended up not only fielding a good team, but they went to the playoffs. Okay,
and challenged Philly.
And challenged them. I expect nothing less from the 49ers this season. They have one of the weakest schedules coming up in this year's draft and this year's season. All right? You got the quarterback you want. You got the quarterback.
Quickly, if they don't clear the division, it's not going to matter what the rest of the schedule is. That's my issue. If the Rams win both games, if Seattle and Arizona split, what are the Niners looking at? Even if you've got that easy schedule, you're still looking at wild card at best.
Tom, you're jumping ahead of me. God damn it. Tom, I understand that. It's like sometimes you got to bake. No sex in the champagne room. You don't just, come on, man, tease it a little bit, Tom. Yes, I know that if they don't win the division, they're fucked. I get that. But what I'm trying to do is build the narrative that the Rams had the same thing said about them last year.
Yeah.
All right?
Absolutely.
Come on, man. It plays.
Parallel.
Exactly. Like, Jesus, Tom, well, have a little fun. Sorry. No fun, police. Goodness. It's like, yeah, that doesn't matter because if they don't make it out of the damn division.
Debbie Downer strikes again. My bad. I'm sorry. I got to get more positive in my life.
Oh, man, come on, bro. Folks. You got to help me out, man. You're like, yeah, that sounds all good, but let me tell you why this will never happen in a million years.
And it won't. I'm sorry, Coach. My bad.
No, you're good, man. No, but I expect nothing less from Kyle. I think Kyle's got enough.
Yeah, that's the standard, dude. McVay did it. Now you do
McVay did it. Exactly. Yeah. So that's where I'm coming from with him trusting his rookies. He's got to play them, right? Rookies played with the Rams. Everybody didn't run Sean McVay's system the way he wanted to, but he coached them up, right? He's got to coach. Outside of Brock Purdy getting traded, I think that Kyle Shanahan should go to the playoffs this year with this team. What do you think?
I think he should. I don't think he'll win the division, but I think they will make it in the wild card because I believe in Saleh. I think that they'll have a good draft. Picking 11th is going to help them. And, they've also got a good special teams coach. That's going to help them when they've been horrendous in special teams forever. Mm-hmm. So I think all of that's going to combine to the point where they'll go 10-7, 11-6, make it to the wild card. And that's the best you can do with this. I don't think they'll do better. But the reason why is that, Sean McVay is a better coach. He did more because he's better. Why did the Rams go further? Because they got a better coach and a better GM. Will the Niners be able to match that? Probably not. Why? Kyle.
This year, I'd like to see some of the easy things, some of the simple things made simple. I want to run in the red zone this year.
That'd be nice.
That'd be nice. I'd like to see some screens earlier in the season this year. I'd like to see them move the pocket on offense. I'd also like Brock to average 25 throws a game. We can have 30 sprinkled in there every now and then. I shouldn't see Brock throwing the ball 40 times a game.
No, you don't need to. But you need to upgrade the offensive line. If all you're going to do is Matt Hennessy and Ben Barch, that's not going to get it done.
Yeah, I'll tell you this: they need to wake up and go do the little things. That's why I preference the Trey Lance narrative first. Is that in order for Kyle and the team to be successful this year, they're going to have to show that they know how to do the simple things. They're going to have to show that, hey, maybe not draft a kicker in the third.
Yeah,
just
you
a
would
suggestion.
think you wouldn't have to say this stuff, and it's amazing that you do.
Hey, you know what? We're not even here to talk about why we should and shouldn't have to say things, but let's just put it out there. Okay. Hey, guys, can we not trade up for a running back in this year's draft?
Yeah.
That's all. Just don't trade up for a running back, bro. That's all. You know, we need no less than 6 linemen in this draft. 6 linemen. We
4
need
of them on defense, 2 on offense.
So here goes the can't miss lineman that we need.
Okay, do it.
We need a swing tackle. We cannot start this season without a swing tackle. Okay?
Agreed.
We need a starting defensive tackle. We cannot start
2 of them.
I was about to go there again. We cannot start this year without drafting a defensive tackle. We need a starting edge. All right? That's 3 linemen that we absolutely need. A D tackle,
no doubt,
an edge, and a swing tackle. That's 3. We need another defensive tackle. Okay? That's 4. Okay? That's 4 linemen that we cannot afford not to draft this year. Okay? That's 4. All right? We need 1 interior lineman on offense, whether he play guard or center. We need 1 of them because I got news for everybody right now. The Niners have not fooled me. Our starting offensive line this coming season will be Trent Williams, Ben Barch, Jake Brindle, Dominic Pooney, and Colton McKivitz.
Unless Hennessy wins in camp.
That's
the only one. The rest of them are locked in.
Ben Barch is our starting left guard. It is disgusting, but I'm saying it now in March, just so there's no confusion when we see his ass roll out there on week 1 of camp, and everybody's like, "What happened to Ben? What? This is what we're doing at left." Yes, they ain't gonna come out and say it, but Ben Barch is our left guard starting. So argue now amongst yourselves. Jake Brindle is coming back at center.
Unless Hennessy can take the job from him.
Unless Hennessy can take it from him, Jake Brindle's our starting center. All right? With that, I don't trust both of those guys to make it through a full season. Nor do I think that Trent Williams is going to make it through a whole season. He has shown that he can't. So that's why we need a swing tackle that can either help Trent when he inevitably goes down. He has not finished a full season for us in 3 straight years. And then we need an interior backup guard/center that can either help Ben Barch, who got hurt and didn't finish the whole season with us when all he played was a couple of games, and Jake Brindle because he's Jake Brindle. Okay? So,
So
right there.
Those. So now let's go to the next thing then. I'll cue you up.
Okay.
You know what center you want, and you know that's a center that they can take. He's available late. He's currently scheduled for 4th to 5th.
Jake Majors out of Texas. Look, 6'3", 315, 6th round. This guy will help us, okay? Quick, all right? Fast guy, not the strongest. There's a reason why he's getting drafted in the 6th round. So we're not going to do that, okay? But I'll tell you this right now. We need to draft a late round center. They don't want to do guard, fine. That's okay. But we cannot go forward in this year's season with Jake Brindle as center. It just can't happen. Jake Majors is my guy. I believe that if they went ahead and picked him up, he's going to be somebody that's played in the SEC, has faced some of the best guys in the interior pass rush as far as college football is concerned. He's played a lot of football. He's a senior. He's weighs more, but not that much. Better than Jake Brindle at 308. Here goes some of his strengths. One thing that he is elite at is that he is pass blocking is what he does. Okay? Right. He's an elite pass protector who demonstrates remarkable consistency.
Sorry, and that's what Purdy needs.
Yes.
Purdy needs somebody so the center doesn't just run back into him.
Yes.
They can't afford to have the pocket collapse as quickly and easily as it has under Brindle.
Yes. So let me take a minute to talk about his pass protection. All right. He's not just good at pass protection. If this kid was 4 inches, like he's 6'3", if he was 3 inches taller and you put about 20 more pounds on him, he'd be going in the first round to play tackle. That's how elite. Go back and look at him now. Jake Majors, pass protection, he's on a savant level for pass protection technique. All right. His hand placement has consistency. He lands first, controls defenders with his chest plate, preventing them from getting leverage on bull rushes. That's the number one move that he loves to go against is the bull rush. All right. He has one thing about him is that he processes defensive fronts very good with extraordinary pre-snap recognition. He routinely identifies blitz packages and making protection calls that keep his quarterbacks at Texas clean throughout the season. I'll tell you another thing is that his mental approach to the game, he almost kind of has like that Alex Mack 10-year veteran. I've been around a long time. There's like that Jason Kelsey vibe of there's not a front that I haven't seen. I've never seen him be confused by a blitz package. This is something that the Niners need because if you remember the downfall or how can I say, I'll just say it. The downfall of Brock Purdy when we kind of started to see him slip was that Ravens game.
Yeah.
And it's no mistake that the offensive line had a absolutely abysmal day during that Ravens game. And what you saw on tape was the simulated pressures.
Exactly.
That's something
Mike McDonald.
That is something that Jake Brindle could not call out. He doesn't know how the pressures are coming. And all of that gets left on Kyle because Brock isn't getting tasked with any of that responsibility. So you get Jake Majors in there. Jake Majors is the guy who we need that can come in and there won't be a front. There won't be a blitz pickup. There won't be a simulated pressure that he will not recognize and call out. One of the biggest things that hurts us offensively with this stupid ass scheme that we run is that you can't call audibles and it's hard for you to switch protections up front because everything is built in. If you get a center who has the mental capacity to look Kyle in the I played center. One of the reasons why it's awesome to have a conscientious center who knows game recognition is because the offense, the OC can argue till he's blue in the face about what he thinks he's going to see. He can talk to us about everything that he's going to bring up before the game, but there is nothing like real data on the field where I can tell you, look, I know what you drew up, but they're not doing this right now. You need to change your protections, all right? We're going 50 on a 60-man box. It's not going to work. I understand that you want to get a sniffer in, but you got to tell George to stay, or you got to get Christian to chip, or you got to move the offensive line because we can't stand static in a 50-man bob protection right here. This is something that – go ahead.
And that's what we saw in the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
What did we see? Simulated pressure. 8 men coming on blocked on blitzes because they didn't pick it up because Brindle is terrible at that. And Majors is excellent at that, no question. He's a diagnostician. He knows what he sees. Mm-hmm. And as you point out, you hit him with the live ammunition reference and he'll know exactly what's going on. Kyle can drop the X's and O's. Majors can come back at him and say, but that's not what's happening on the field.
Exactly.
And he's going to have to respond to that and respect it because, okay, Kyle can argue, well, my system is infallible. I will refer you to the Baltimore game and the Super Bowl proving otherwise.
One thing that I do love about that,
like Majors.
Yeah. I'm sorry. And one thing I do love about the Jake Majors pick as well is that he can challenge Kyle, right? Kyle said it himself when the short stint in which we had Alex Mack before he retired, him retiring early killed us. You could tell they were
brutal.
begging him to stay. It was a brutal move for him to leave because he made so many things easy for us, getting us in the right run fits, being able to get us in the right pass protections. That is stuff that Kyle, you could see him actually beam over it, saying that center is the most important position in my scheme. It's part of the reason why Jake Brindle has been able to survive so long because God love him. I know that I give him a hard time because of his physical skill, but cognitively, he is one of our better centers that we've had. One of the things, if we go back to some players that have kind of got slipped through our fingers on guys that we never quite went back and really kind of fixed that, I would say the loss of Weston Richburg, right? We never really got, Weston Richburg was a great center for us before he got hurt. Okay.
Yeah, and then he goes down to the patellar tendon, which is why you don't take Josh Simmons.
This is why you leave Simmons alone, right? But listen, we got Alex Mack in here, and he showed proof of concept. I think Jake Majors in the 4th round, even the 4th, I wouldn't be mad. Yeah. I wouldn't be mad at that. But I think Jake Majors is what you get.
Yeah, there's one other center who you've talked up before, Drew Kendall from BC.
Yes.
And here's the key is that I call it the future 49er drill. It's the short shuttle at the combine. It's the 20-yard shuttle. Anybody that leads their position group in that drill is somebody the Niners consider. 4 of their picks last year were guys that were top of their position group in the short shuttle. It's the cheat code for who the Niners going to pick as you take a look at that. Now, the 40 times and the speed times from Indy this year were slower because they changed the pellets out. They went from rubber bullets to dirt, and that slowed down the 40 times, slowed down everything. But there were 3 guys that ran 451 in the short shuttle, and that's going to make them appear on the Niner radar. Drew Kendall at center, Caleb Rogers at guard, Logan Brown at tackle. All 3 of them ran 451 on the old surface. That's probably worth 447, and that's the NFL wisdom is that if you run 447 or faster in the short shuttle, you're a starter in the league. I think those are the 3 guys the Niners are going to look at just out of habit. Those are the fastest guys in the short shuttle. They're going to be on them. And Logan Brown, coming from Kansas, it's the same coaching staff that produced Pooney. And so that might be another feather in his cap of somebody to look at. And he's a late pick because he's a late developer. He's only been in Kansas for a year. And so he's still going to need some seasoning, but he's somebody they can take on and say, this is a guy who could be a piece for us long term.
Definitely. Drew Kendall is also another guy that I love. I can't believe, Tom, you're sitting here bringing my notes back. You're getting me bringing up all my old notes. I did. Drew Kendall is one of the first players that I noticed late in the draft. Drew Kendall, I wouldn't be mad at that pick either. Big body. One thing I like about Drew, juxtaposed to Majors, is that Drew is a little bit bigger. And Drew played a long time at Boston College. Started all 4 years. Definitely somebody who you want to be able to bring on. Played in the Shrine Bowl, had a good game as well. But I wouldn't be mad at either. Jake Majors or Drew Kendall, they would start right away for us. That's the biggest thing, is that they would start right away. So let's move into our last topic of the show. One thing is that me and you, we always have good, fun times during these shows, but man, just time keeps moving. Is Kyle Shanahan secretly on the hot seat? Despite sustained success, the 49ers have yet to win it all under Kyle. With roster turnover and contract decisions looming, is there a growing pressure on the head coach? So, go ahead. Is he secretly on the hot seat?
I think so. At least to the point where they're saying, prove it this year.
Yeah.
I mean, they've already signaled that he's on the hot seat just in terms of how they've cornered him and said, we're not going to give you what you normally expect and have had from us in spending. Mm-hmm. And so if we're going to scale back and we're going to lose 7 starters or main position guys, how are you going to respond to that? That's already putting him on the hot seat in the sense of we want to see you prove you can coach and develop these guys.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I think he's secretly on the hot seat, and they haven't made it public because they don't want to give him the option of then pointing to it and saying I was under too much pressure. I mean that's a point that you made in the 4-man group this week, and
Hey,
it's exactly right.
hey, look, we're not going to argue on this one. This is basically going to be an echo chamber of a topic right now. I 100% believe that he is on the hot seat, but I believe that it's just bad form to do it out openly. I think that the Niners, it makes them look better as an organization. It keeps things down for negotiations with teams. I mean, with players, if they know that Kyle's on his way out, they might ask for a little bit more money to kind of stave them off from a new regime coming in, so they can kind of make themselves indispensable with their money fiscally. So players negotiate differently when they know that their coach is on the way out. So that's another reason to keep this under the hat. Also, they want to be able to show that when things go bad, they know how to quote unquote defend their guy. So they can show that this is a good destination where we do look out for our coaches. But make no mistake about it, Kyle is coaching for his professional life right now. It would be crazy for him not to be on the hot seat. And I believe that the best thing that they're doing is what I've been talking about all freaking offseason. When we were talking about is Kyle on the hot seat? And I said, I wouldn't put him on the hot seat for two reasons. One is for the obvious reason, the hot take reason. You just went to the Super Bowl a year ago, okay? And it would be bad form for those of us who are still like, Disney movies. Oh, why'd they do that to Kyle? That's so messed up. Come on, man. Like that's messed up, man. Like, how people they love to make these dudes look so innocent.
Oh,
how could you do that to a genius? What's the matter with you? He's a genius. Like, I can't believe this. But what I also love is that they're making them wear it. Saying like, look, bro, you're the one who told us to sign these guys, okay? You're the one who came in here and pushed against our process and told us that these are the guys to bring into the organization. Not only that, but we have guys that are already here in Parag Marat, in Rand Carthon when he was here, and guys that were pushing it back against some of this money that we wanted to shell out for these guys, and you told us to trust you. Now it's time to pay the piper, okay? And what I love about this is that this is how bad teams go from bad teams to bad franchises. Is when the organization follows the mentality of what the team is doing right now. You can't trust this team to do what's best for the organization because they're all trying to get paid. They're all trying to get comfort. They're all trying to be in one position at one spot in the country for as long as possible. They're all trying to have their kids go to the same school, not have to pick up and leave. So they're a little compromised. And with what I'm saying is that I feel like in order for you to get the best out of Kyle right now, how could he not be on the hot seat? If you're going to see exactly what he's going to do with the rest of the team, you got your quarterback. You got one of the best tight ends in the league. You beat down the door for us to pay this guy guaranteed money in Christian McCaffrey. It's so funny that now Jordan Mason gets a second-round tender.
Well, hold on that one, because the restricted free agent rules are arcane. They're crazy. In order to trade a player that's restricted, you have to tender him first. So that's what I think they're doing.
You think they're going to trade him?
Yeah, they gave him a tender so that he wouldn't become an unrestricted free agent at the start of the new league year. And it's what you have to do with the restricted players. You have to tender him. You don't have to sign him to a deal. You just have to tender him. And then you're free to be able to trade him. And I think that's what they're planning to do, because they're going to take a running back in this draft, guaranteed. And they just signed Patrick Taylor. They're going to trade Mason. Now, whether they get anything for him, I don't know, but I would think that they're going to be looking at whatever they can get back. Kyle doesn't believe in Mason. When Mason
Why?
had
You
the
know what? I'm so
opportunity,
glad you said that. Why? What is his issue with him?
fumbling. It's the same thing that I brought up with Genty and Travion, is that Kyle overreacts to fumbling. He can't handle it. He can't take it. It's why he doesn't play Mason. And therefore, it's why he's not going to play Mason. Therefore, move on. And I think that's what this is. They tendered him to trade him. And that's how crazy the restricted free agency
I just get the
rules
feeling
are.
that he's always played Jordan because he had to.
Yeah, he had no
He's
choice.
never, he only plays Jordan Mason when he has no choice. I do not understand that.
Me either. He's a great runner. Well, and to the chat from Gammon, and a great point from him, and I agree completely. Well, it's also fumbling, Gammon, but it's blocking. Kyle hates that you can't pass pro block. And Mason has had a lot of struggles in pass pro. Another reason why Kyle would absolutely love Travion. He's the best back in the class in pass pro, on top of never fumbling and being a home run threat.
He is a home run threat.
Being run pass. Travion is everything Kyle would ever want in a running back.
Before he runs him to the ground and he gets hurt, if you want Travion Henderson, then you're going to have to get him in the second round.
Yeah, he would, if he even lasts to 43. I don't think he will. I think that if Kyle had a choice of every player in this draft, he would take Travion if he could get away with it.
Tom, we were having a good show. We were having a good show.
Okay. Well, I think that's what he would do if he could, but he can't. And so I think Travion's going to go at the end of the first, and that's going to be it.
Do you think they pulled the trigger on Caleb Johnson then?
Yeah, because they met with him at Indy. Formal interview. He was the only running back in the top 10 of the running backs that they talked to in that way. I think that he's somebody they're looking at. Also, Bashul Tutin, because he's got the
VTech 4.3.
Right. He's a fast back. And they'll also look at Brashard Smith from SMU because he's got the converted wide receiver background. He's a great receiver.
You think they're going to look at him for another? I like Brashard Smith as kind of like a little bit of a Debo clone.
Right. And he's somebody that can play wide back because he's played both. He's been a running back. He's been a wide receiver. I think that's somebody that Kyle could look at too. He's a fifth rounder. So I think that that's a possibility is they look at him too. There's also DJ Giddens from K-State if they're willing to make a pick a little bit earlier. All those guys fit. But clearly the guy that they like is Caleb Johnson. Whether he can get to a pick that they could use on him, I'm not so sure.
Yeah.
Because again, the way that we broke it down was 43 has to be used on Tyleik Williams. And this is where the draft is going to become critical. Kyle being Kyle is going to want to take his running back at 43.
100%.
The team, Lynch, the scouts are all going to have to push back, and Saleh, and say, no, we've got to get a defensive tackle at 43.
But Tom, I think that you're going with the old SOP of Kyle not being on the hot seat. Let's stick to the topic.
Yeah, that's right. What I agree with is that because of all of that, Kyle isn't going to be able to get away with what he's done in the past in the draft. And where we're going to see proof of that is the pick at 43.
So where did they pick up the running back then? Because right now, if I'm a listener right now, I'm saying to myself, Coach and Tom are talking out of their ass. Because on one side, they're saying that because of Kyle being on the hot seat, that the regular SOP of how they do things is going to be changed, right? And what's going to be emblematic of that is the pick that we usually see at 43 where Kyle would go get his running back or Kyle will go get his slot receiver that he likes. We're not going to be able to see that. But then on the other hand, we're saying that we're still going to be able to see that pick replicated in the draft anyway. So which is it?
Later.
Is Kyle going to get his way or is he not?
Kyle's not. 43 is going to have to be used on a defensive tackle if it's not used at 11.
Right.
But Kyle is still going to get his running back. He's just not going to get him at the spot he wants. He's going to have to settle for a running back in the 4th or the 5th. So that's Giddens in the 4th. That's Smith in the 5th. That's what I would expect to happen, is that Kyle is going to get his running back, but not in the usual spot that we expect him to take it in the 2nd or the 3rd. That's not going to happen because they got too many needs in the defensive line. They've got.
Hold on, but wait a minute. Also, this only works with you. This scenario only works if Jordan Mason gets moved. You think they still draft the back even with Jordan Mason on the roster?
No, I think they'll trade Mason and that they'll draft a running back. But
If they don't trade Mason,
if they don't trade Mason, I think Kyle being Kyle will still take a running back.
You think they'll still take a running back even though they don't trade Jordan Mason?
Yes, because this running back class is so loaded, Kyle will not be able to help himself. But the franchise, everybody in that draft room can tell him, you are not taking a running back at 43. So they're going to box him in. They're going to say, okay, Kyle, you can have your running back, but not until the 4th at the earliest and probably in the 5th.
Tom, this has been yet another great show.
This is a great one, Coach.
We got to run it back again next week, Tom. Tom, you are my guy. Close us out, man. What you got going for the rest of the week, man?
Writing. Got
a lot of writing, man.
So I've got some stuff coming up. I'm working on my next mock.
Mm-hmm.
We preview that with our picks at 11, 43, and 75.
Right.
We'll fill out the rest. So look for that on Twitter. And then I'm also doing just a lot of writing, period, on everything else. So that's my day. Right.
Let's go through some super chats. Big Dez 199. Is Kyle Shanahan going to get serious about JP Mason? I feel like we covered that. Yaz Williams 199. We all know their first pick won't make sense. I'm hoping that it's Shahad Campbell. Like Tom has made me a believer. I know the player. I know the kid. I stayed away from linebacker because I believe that the Niners were not going to be able to get anybody as good to start for them right away. But if they address it early, I have no problem with Shahad Campbell at 11. As a matter of fact, it's the only pick that really makes sense as far as best available, most need, and best in the draft as far as the 11th player in the draft. I like it. So Gammon Brown $2. Draft Tyler Warren at 11 and only have him block. It's what it is.
You're killing me, Gavin.
Gavin's the man. Hey, man. Tom, as always, man, this has been another great show, man. Hey, we are out of here. But look, before we leave, stay low and keep your feet moving. Holla at you guys, man. This is the Coach and Tom. Be at you guys in a couple of days. Talk to you.